Hi everyone. I've got a bunch of people coming on. Now, because my system needs all the bandwidth it can get, I've got you currently muted. So it's muted without video. So really that allows me to have a video stream and also to be sharing my screen. And when we get to the end of the session, I'll open it up. We can have a bit more fun with it when there's not so much on the PowerPoint presentation and it could be slowing us down. So just hang in there. I love Zoom because it can be beautifully interactive, but the other point is you have to kind of manage what's going on. I live in rural Australia, which means for those of us in Aussie, not always great internet speed. The 7 secrets to boost facilitation impact with visuals. That's the masterclass. I'm Michelle Walker. I'm from Curious Minds Company. I've been doing this work for over a decade. I get very passionate about it, and I'm hoping that we are going to share a lot of information and stories tonight. So, my 3 hot tips for you for the workshop to get the most out of this masterclass. Have your handbook and a pen ready because that's going to be really valuable. I'm going to be able to help you take notes and really fill out what's important for you. I also recommend turning off any distractions because really you've given yourself this time, and our learning is so much better when we're single focused. We know that. It's sometimes hard to do, I guarantee it. I also hope you're comfortable, you've got a beverage appropriate to your time zone, and yeah, get ready because my workshops are very hands-on. I will share a ton of information with you in the 60 minutes that we've got, and I really want you to take a stack of takeaways. You know, I really want you to get a bunch of things that are going to help you boost the impact of your next workshop or your next meeting facilitation. So let us dive in, and I'm just going to recommend that we hold off questions until the end because then I can open up the lines. I can get videos and audio open. We can all have a chat, but while I'm doing the presentation, it will just be easier for the streaming. So recommend holding your questions, and we will get to them definitely at the end of our masterclass. And for those of you that will want to take this work further, I know there'll be some of you that will get really fired up. I will let you know all about that at the end of the masterclass, how you can do that, because this is a fantastic way of working. Whether you are a capital F facilitator or whether you're a manager, a project leader, you're a community advocate, it doesn't matter. These skills can be incredibly valuable either in your toolkit, in what you already do, or as a standalone, you know, as an extra offering. Perhaps if you work for yourself, it can be a fantastic extra offering to your clients. So I just want to check, this workshop is really going to be for you if you have a facilitation practice and you've never really considered how important visuals are, or if you don't, you're not a capital F facilitator, but you find yourself in the role of running meetings and running workshops and designing stakeholder engagements with clients or, you know, other community members or with team members. And if you've really struggled with how to get the most results at times, this will be useful for you. And it's also going to be good if you've already got some of this in your toolkit and you want to expand and find new ways that you can use images, visuals, drawing into your meetings and your workshop design. So all of those are going to be relevant. So what I'd love you to do is find the chat box again and just let me know if this is something that's a yes for you. If you can relate to any of those categories that I mentioned that I feel I'm going to be talking to while we're on this masterclass. And I've got hello from Brisbane, hi Leanne, Lara from Rome, Maria from Coonabarabran. I'm just going to read through a few locations and I'm getting lots and lots of yeses. Fantastic. All right, while you've got your finger on the chat box, let me ask you another question. On a scale of 1 to 10, so I'm going to ask you 2 questions. You need to have 2 numbers at the end of it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how often are visuals a part of the way that you run meetings or the way that you think about designing communications and interaction? where 1 is hardly at all, not at all, and 10 is all the time. So that's the first figure. Come up with a number, and then the second figure I want you to jump into the chat box alongside is, how comfortable do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 when you're using these visuals? So 1, not comfortable at all. 10, super comfortable. Love it, love it, love it. So I've got 8 and 9. I've got 10 and 10. All right. I might have to hand over the facilitation then. Thank you, Andy. I've got 7.52 and 3.33. Thank you very much for that. Some issues, I feel that is great. I've got 3 and 6, I've got 8 and 8, I've got 4 and 5. Okay, so there's a mix. I'm really hoping then that we are going to cover some ground for you, which will be really valuable. And for those that weren't 10 out of 10, or sorry, 10 and 10, then this could help you lift those numbers. And before I dive in, I really want to give you a bit of a snapshot of why I'm here and why I do what I do. My passion is really connecting people to their innovation, to their capacity to find problems, solutions to problems in that they're dealing with. Whether, you know, and I think really helping people see what they're capable of and what's possible for them, whether it's in their organization or in their business planning, their community strategy work, or more broadly an individual's goals in life. That's really what I love doing. And what I've found over and over is that most people believe they aren't creative. And I'm here to tell you that's because a lot of people have a very narrow definition of creativity, and drawing is an aspect of creativity that falls squarely into that. And if you're one of those people and I say creativity and drawing, then you're going to think of, you know, the masters like Michelangelo and Da Vinci. And that's part of what we're sort of struggling with, I think, is the definition. So we'll have a bit of a play with that. And just backtrack a little bit, I want to give you a little snapshot of something that happened for me that was really quite impactful over a decade ago. I was standing in front of around 60 thought leaders and sort of top of their field practitioners in the water area, and I was aware of the investment in the room. And I also feel whenever I'm sort of facilitating formally a workshop, I really feel a huge obligation to help those groups work at their very best and get every last bit of value out of their time together. And what struck me was that despite the caliber of the thinking, we were hearing some fairly, you know, kind of same old issues without any really innovative solutions. So, you know, communications between groups in silo situations within organizations, the lack of resources, lack of collaboration where that was needed. And it felt like I really needed to help people jump out of the usual train tracks of their thoughts and their contributions and really dig deep and come with some innovative ways of thinking about these problems. And I had a background until that point. I'd had a background in science. I did my undergrad and postgrad in the science area. And I'd gone back and previously, and just sort of in the year preceding, completed a fine art degree. And I was really having a bit of a think about, well, you know, I've got this planning and facilitation business, and it was sort of this whole separate interest in the visual arts and creative thinking. And I wanted to explore what the field of creative thinking had to offer my facilitation and my planning work. And in essence, I was looking at the intersection of that Venn diagram, you know, like what was it that sat between helping groups think better and plan and strategize together and creative arts. And that's what, I guess, led me to sort of start playing with ideas from art college around design thinking and create different types of creative thinking. And I really explored the use of, initially I was using props and mind maps and getting people to combine old ideas to come up with new combinations. It really worked. And so I started to see some real changes in the way that people were responding and the kinds of results we were getting. And I decided that I really needed to investigate the reasons behind all that. So as someone who loves learning, I went on a bit of a knowledge quest for new ideas and understanding and tools to work with this stuff and understand the why of it all. So that's a bit about my story. It's very short and sweet and to the point. So what we're going to cover in this masterclass, I want to cover why visuals are so important to get groups working, to spark new thinking, whether that's in groups or people on their own, and to capture the group output. I also want to cover how easy it is to add visuals, even if you can't draw a jot or you believe you can't draw. I want to go over the 3 simple ways to make your charts pop, and that takes under 5 minutes to do. And I also want to make sure that you know where to go for great resources to get your visual facilitation skills and practice humming and or launched. So let's start with number 1, why visuals are so important. So on any given day, we fire off emails, we send off text messages, we sit in meetings, we hold discussions, we prepare reports, we file reports. And did you know that we receive 500% as much information in a day as we did 30 years ago? That's a huge increase. I love this graphic from QME that I found, where it talks about every 60 seconds in the online world, 204 million emails are sent, 2 million searches are done in Google. That's 4 times what the number of searches that was done in 60 seconds just a year ago. We have 571 new websites being created, 3,600 photos being uploaded to Instagram, and every 60 seconds there is 72 hours of YouTube video being uploaded. So even though we have more information available to us than ever before and quicker ways of accessing it through the internet, now more than ever, people and businesses and organizations are really struggling with information overload. So it's time to stop and deeply think about how we are working and the way that we are, you know, capturing our ideas and sharing information and trying to have collaborative discussions. I mean, we really want all our messages to be memorable and our efforts to have a positive impact, whether it's a big stakeholder forum you're running or just a weekly team meeting. It kind of doesn't matter. In our text-heavy world, this is a greater challenge, and I think the bottom line is it's time for something new. It's time to offer something other than sways and sways of text and verbal. So in the context of this and sort of, I guess, contemplating how we present and share information, and where we're thinking about helping groups that are wrestling with complex information and trying to make decisions, it's really useful to consider how people's brains work and how useful pictures can be and images can be for problem solving, communication and collaboration. In a world that operates almost predominantly in verbal text mode, there is some important, you know, could there be some important aspects of our thinking and communicating that we are missing? And that's the question. So coming back, how does our brain work? I know some of you will know this, so it's just a refresher, but our prefrontal cortex, we have 3 brains, and the prefrontal cortex is really our higher order thinking brain, where it does that amazing, you know, pattern recognition and creative thinking happens in our prefrontal cortex. We also have the limbic, which is our emotional brain, and our crook brain, as I call it, which is really concerned with some quick assessments and all about survival. Because the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, is about 3% of our body mass, but can consume nearly 1/4 of our body's energy, there really has been a set of rules put in place to conserve energy. So in other words, we don't wake up our brilliant thinking brain unless we have to. And the crook brain has almost like a gatekeeper role, and it won't allow any messages through that it's seen before, that it finds confusing, that's vague, or I guess, yeah, it's really get our prefrontal cortex attention. John Mendita wrote a great book a number of years ago called Brain Rules, and I just want to share a couple of snippets from his book. Vision surpasses all other senses, and we don't pay attention to boring things, and memory is assisted by visuals. So when we when we think about sharing our ideas with another person or with a group, we have to remember to make the message fast, visual, concrete, and novel. In other words, if the brain senses it's going to take effort because this thing that's being shared is vague, or it's, you know, it's a bit woolly, then the brain's just going to switch off. Or if it's boring and it's seen it before, then it's not novel, it's just going to switch off. So as a workshop facilitator, as a meeting, someone who runs meetings, how can our processes address these requirements to help participation, to help engagement, and to spark new thinking? And we know that our brain, more than 50% of our brain's neurons are dedicated to the visual senses. And a further whopping, I think, 75% of our brain's capacity to process incoming sensory information is for seeing. So as John Mendina says, vision trumps all other senses. We have so much real estate set aside for visual information. When I say real estate, I mean brain real estate, you know, like you've got grey matter. So I said that I had gone on a sort of a bit of a quest, a knowledge quest about understanding why creative thinking, and in particular visual thinking, is so powerful. Here's my 3, I guess, big standout reasons why working visually is so powerful. And the first is that seeing comes before speaking and words. Thought pictures come before language, and so it's natural because we're wired to see in images and we're wired to think in images. Some things are just so much better illustrated as a drawing rather than text. You know, you can draw a circle in part of a second, but if you had to use the word explanation, it's very lengthy and time consuming. Also, when you hear or see a word, you have to convert it into that 2D form. And then you recognize that 2D form as this, you know, it pulls up a visual image and you have a memory associated with that. So the other critical aspect of working visually that's so powerful is that for some types of information, it's super fast. There's a great statistic that says we can get the sense of a visual scene in less than 1/10 of a second. And we can, and it only takes about 150 milliseconds for symbols to get processed by us. So that's why they're so powerful, is that we have almost instant recognition of them. And the third aspect that I want to cover is the fact that when we use an image with text, we will have a much greater retention of that information than if we saw the word alone. So anything that's got the combination, so we're not talking about throwing out words and verbal and text completely. We're definitely not doing that. We're talking about the combination. We're talking about adding image with that will really, really help the brain to remember. So working visually helps the information last. So there's the 3 big powers of working visually. So for us, when we're facilitating, whether we're up, you know, as the graphic facilitator or we're leading something a little more informal, it means that visuals and images are going to be really important to help participants think clearly and stay focused. It's also going to help people make meaning, to develop understanding of other people's viewpoints, and where relevant, to come to some agreement and make decisions. And after the event or after the fact, it's also going to be really important in terms of recall of the discussion and the key points that came out of that discussion. So here's the first secret I want to share with you in this masterclass, and that's thinking in pictures. It's natural, it's fast, and it promotes retention. But where you might get stuck is thinking that you have to convert everything to pictures, and that's not the case. So just make a note of this, because I find it interesting as I've gone through and sort of been training professionals around Australia and overseas for many, many years now, that they think they have to throw all the words and text out the window, but that's not the case. So next, let's look at how easy it is to add visuals, even if you can't draw. And I'm hoping for those who had a low score on feeling comfortable with using drawings and visuals, that this will give you a bit of a sigh of relief, perhaps. So let's think about how we can use visuals in any and all of our processes on sort of a usual type of meeting or workshop running. So when we talk about the setup and the opening processes, here's an example. This is a Grove template, and it's a fantastic setup for a facilitator because it has the agenda, roles and rules, and outcomes. And here's one that I did a number of years ago with the same sort of format, looking at having on one sheet everything that participants need to refer to for the day. Another aspect is as a way of getting people to introduce themselves. So there's a whole range of cards and card sets that I want to show you. But for example, these are 3 images out of my card set called the Curiosity Box. But it's a great way to get people to just answer a quick question right at the beginning of a session. So if you know each other well as a team, you might just ask people to check in and how they feel. Pick a card that sort of represents what they're thinking about right today or how they're feeling right now. But if you've got a group that's getting to know each other, it could be more about, for example, how do people relate to, innovation, and they might grab a card and help them introduce themselves in relation to the question that you've asked them. It's also useful to have some kind of visual that marks progress through an agenda. For example, we'll often have an agenda sheet up, and I will often use a brightly colored arrow post-it note to track throughout the day, so people know at any given time exactly where we are in the program. It's also really going to be valuable if you don't already use them, where you set up a bit of a template that people can record their own session discussions. And you might give them, this might be on an A3 sheet, and they might be working in 2s or 3s, and they're filling out this recording sheet as they go. And what they're writing is essentially, mostly words, but it's visual appeal because of the layout and the interesting icons and template that's being used. It can also be used as a way of capturing thoughts from a room over a period of time. Like you might have, this is a graphic actually from a little community workshop that was run, and people came and went and they just jotted down their ideas and their thoughts of what they loved about the local area. So this was just up on the wall. There was no specific process for it, but it allowed people to interact in their own way. And of course, many people will have seen and or potentially do this, which is the harvest feedback, which is a critical aspect of one of the ways that we can use visuals in terms of recording conversations that groups have. And one of the things I like to do if I'm facilitating is the ability to use the chart that's been developed for the day as part of the summary and the wrap up. So here's a big chart. I remember I populated it as the sessions went on throughout the day, and at the end of the day, the group and I stood there and we went over all the material and key points that came out of the forum that we just run. And it was part of the ability to, elicit any more key points that people had, but also be able to kind of review the progress of the day. So my second secret for you is design visuals into your process. Make it the backbone. Make it, not a last minute add-on, like you just draw an icon on the top. It's actually think about all the ways that you can use visuals. And I've just given you a ton of examples, but I'm sure there are many more, I know. So let's look at what I call ready-mades. So this is lowering the anxiety level for those who don't like drawing or feel kind of that this is not an area of their strength. Ready-mades is a term I've stolen out of the art and creative thinking world. And essentially, it's like the card set that I was showing you before. So here's a bunch of card sets that I've got in my studio. Innovation Toolkit, IDEO method cards, what's your story cards. The bottom one, the Curiosity Box, is my card set. So I hand drew 40 images that are black and white hand-drawn images to really spark conversation and thinking. And the other one, which many people might have seen, is the picture this set of coloured cards. So another ready-made is where, for example, this chart was done by someone who used coloured shapes as one of the critical ways of communicating information. So, and the clip art and the photos was another way. So there wasn't a lot of drawing here, but this was really visually interesting. And the colour coding of communications was the light bulb, the green squares was education, and the blue bubbles was motivation. This was casting a history line for a brand new advisory group so that they understood the 10 years or so of action and activity and learning that had come on before their time. So this chart was done, you know, large scale, 3 meters, specifically to let people have that quick uptake and quick get up to speed. But there's not a lot of drawing there. It really is using largely coloured shapes, clip art and photos, and layout. My next suggestion, in addition to ready-mades, is give the markers to participants. And I know some people are already probably doing this. This is an example of a sign-in sheet that I did, and the top half is what I did. I just kind of, you know, did the heading and asked people to draw a picture of themselves, write their name, and identify one hot issue that they really wanted to address over the 3 days that we were going to be together. So everybody came in with pens and paper, and this was about halfway through. This got really quite full, but it was fantastic because people had some fun with it, and they also got to identify their hot issue. So give the markers to participants. Here's another way that I give markers to participants is at the end of the forum, I ask them, you know, in terms of the objectives that we set up for the session, did we hit the mark? And so they can either go up and write their name and put a, how close to the bullseye did we get? Or instead of markers, in this case, coloured dots, and people can mark how close we got to the bullseye for them. So my third secret is you can use ready-made visuals, or you can get the participants to draw and write with the markers. So lots of options there. So I want you to go and jump on into the chat box again. And I'd love you to just give me a yes or a no. Do you believe, actually I've done it back to front, so just watch me here. If you believe you can't draw, type yes. Great, I'm getting some mixed yes, no, yes. So I've got people who think they can draw, which is fantastic. All right, we've got a good mix. Let's have some fun with this. Okay. Where you might get stuck is thinking that you have to draw like the masters, like Da Vinci. And that is drawing for art's sake, not drawing for ideas. And that is a very separate thing that we're talking about when we talk about being creative and drawing, is really about the ideas and communicating, distilling, sharing, and having clarity. So if you're one of the ones that said you think you can't draw, I really want you to keep an open mind, and I'm just going to have some fun. So I'm hoping you've got your pen and paper. This guy here, his name's Spike, and I'm going to run you through, Graham Shaw does a great sort of lesson on drawing, and so I'm going to follow Graham Shaw's school of drawing. So I just want you to follow along. First of all, do a C, that's our nose, and then do 66 for our eyes. And then an arc for the mouth and a little line. And then a backward C for the ear. And another line. That's the ear. Next, let's do the hair. Squiggly line. So we're almost there. Going to do the chin next. Start underneath the nose, go underneath the mouth, and then vertical. And then the back of the neck starts near the ear and goes straight down. And then do a line across for the shoulders. You can do a little circle for the neck of the t-shirt, whatever. Simple as that is Spike. How did everyone go? Okay, so got some good. Okay, let's try another one while we're on a roll. This is Marge, and we're going to just change a few things, and you can see how different the faces are, because I really think drawing faces is one of the critical things. So let's go. We're going to do an L for the nose, 66 for the eyes, a little curve for the mouth, and a little line. Then I want you to do a sort of a giant random blob. That's going to be Marge's hair. Then we'll do the chin and the front side of the neck, similar to Spike. So starting underneath the nose, following underneath the mouth, and then going vertically down. And then the back of the neck. Start at the end of the hair, straight down. A V for the neck of the shirt, and 2 lines for the shoulders. Okay, we've done Marge. That's 2. Let's do a straight on face, because sometimes you want to be able to draw straight on. So let's do Bob. This is Bob. Let's start with the eyes, 66 for the eyes. Backwards J for the nose. Let's do a curve again for the mouth and a little line straight underneath the nose. Okay, so next we're going to do from the hairline down to the top of the ear. And then a small C, that's the left-hand ear, and then a big U. So it goes all the way down underneath the jaw to the right ear, backwards C for the right ear, and then up to the hairline. And then just do a squiggly line to join those 2 up. And then over the top from the right ear to the left ear, do like a dome, and that's the top of the head. Now we do the neck, so coming down from the left-hand side of the jaw, right-hand side of the jaw, and then do shoulders and, you know, a t-shirt or some kind of line across to show. And that's Bob. So Spike, Marge, and Bob. Very simple, repeatable. You can play with varying certain aspects and get completely different characters. But one of the great things is that you can really bring life to your charts and your notes by putting some good faces. People always love to see the faces of others in drawings or in charts in the notes. So everybody can have a bit of a play with that. Okay, so what I wanted to do is just show you, this is what I've got in terms of my go-to icons that I use all the time. The kind of work that I do, the sort of groups that I work with, these are the sort of icons that I use regularly. And if you get my free ebook, which is the 12 icons book, these are in there. And they are useful, like I literally use them every day. So you don't need thousands and thousands of icons. You just need a half a dozen or a dozen, and that's, you know, really useful for probably 80% of the time. So my 4th secret is, if you didn't think you could draw, you can if you practice. And the only thing I find when people are getting involved in this kind of work is if you try to take on too many icons at once. If you've not been doing a lot of drawing and you then try and take on too many, you'll overwhelm yourself. So I always recommend, if this is for you and you're just starting out and trying to get your visual library, your visual language together, then pick 3 and practice those, and practice them. And it might just be, you know, a number of times a day and you get it done in a week or longer. But what you want to be able to do is draw them quickly and without thinking. What they call unconscious competency, where you don't even have to think about it, like driving a gear shift car, etc. So let's get on to the third one. aspect that I want to cover today, which is the 3 simple ways to make your charts, flip charts, pop, and how easy that can be. We can do that in under 5 minutes. So how to design great flip charts. The first point is a big bold heading. So make your writing clear and large in terms of width so that it's really bold. Put a border around the chart, because the part of the brains, of your audience that scans for the edge of information will see the border and stop and rest. So they know that, all the information that they need to pay attention to is within the border. And then the third area is the treatment of the body of the flip chart. So what do you do with what's in the middle of the flip chart? And I've got some suggestions, a couple of ideas of how to do that. Not extensive by all means, but just some ideas. So one possibility is to use alternating colors for the key points. So the brain goes, oh, that's separate from that and separate from that. Another is to use a little thin break line. So I always teach people how to do break lines with their pens, because it really helps people see that, okay, that's separate from what comes below it. And the third one is just incorporate some really simple icons, because that's when they're hand drawn, that means that they're novel and they're engaging and people are interested in soaking up the information around. So bold heading, border around the flip chart, and some treatments on the body text. So my 5th secret is you can make your charts pop in those 3 simple ways. Where you might get stuck when you're starting out, though, is not allowing enough time to map these out. Because if you haven't been doing lots of these, they may take just a little bit of time when you first start to get your skills. So just make sure that you've got a few minutes to be able to do it with lots of peace. You're not trying to do it as people are walking in the door. So my last aspect that I want to cover is where to go for great resources. So let's start with the forums. The first is the Graphic Facilitation, which is a public group on Facebook. There is a ton of experience in the people in that group. There are so many, folks that have got so much knowledge, and it's such a generous group. I love it. I'm on there regularly, and people are, they share resources, they share information about new resources that they're developing. They ask questions, there's lots of feedback, and it really is a really valuable group if you're interested in this kind of work. Another good one is the Graphic Facilitation blog by Peter Duran. He's been curating this, and it still has quite a lot of resources. It sort of dropped off a little bit, but it's still worth having a look at. And the other forum is the International Forum for Visual Practitioners, which is a membership group. So you pay to be a member. And it is a tremendous group. One of the great things about the group is the international conference that's held every year. And it really is a valuable way to connect with others, to learn from others, and to share what you've got to offer. So IFVP, as it is known, is a tremendous forum that's worth looking into if you want to take it seriously and take it sort of to the next step. So let's talk about tools and materials. I've got some favorites, unashamedly, so I'm not trying to say this is the only set of tools and materials and resources that I would recommend, that everyone would recommend, but these are the ones I recommend when I'm doing my training and delivering my training. The first is David Sibbitt's Visual Meetings. David Sibbett, The Grove, for those who don't know David, he's got a set of books, Visual Meetings, Visual Teams, Visual Leadership. I find visual meetings still profoundly useful and very valuable for those starting out. Blow, which is a magic book. I've got them all here in front of me. Blow is it's just got a tremendous resource of different ways of drawing icons, different ways of drawing visual concepts. That's really, really valuable. Visual Thinking by Nancy Margulis. I know this is, this was first printed a number of years ago, but I still find it really, when I was starting out, I still find it valuable for people who are at the beginning of their visual vocab. Brandy Agabat's Idea Shapers. I was very lucky to have Brandy come and she and I put on an event in Brisbane last December, which was very exciting. And we were talking about the Idea Shapers. And it is a really good book to get to, you know, a more conceptual basis of the breadth of the way that you can shape your ideas and you can help groups shape their ideas. So this is not so much about icons, but thoughts. And I think it's a fabulous addition to lots of people's libraries. And the last one is Sketchnote Handbook, Mike Rohde's Sketchnote Handbook. So there's a bit of variety there. I just wanted to make sure that if you hadn't seen them, that you now have. And I also want to flag the the 15 visual templates for facilitators, which is my book. It's also really been designed for facilitators in mind, where it is, you get a whole series of templates that are, you know, I guess identified for use in different elements of your workshop or meeting design. So you get the template, you also get a close-up of the image that is, you know, key to that template. So all of the templates have all of the images. And I designed it so that you can use it in one of 4 ways. You can print out and paste the templates onto the wall or onto your whiteboard and use them. You can print out and slide them under your paper and then draw over them, so you can get some of the hand-eye muscle, you know, skills in being able to do the drawing. You can use the visual templates and just freehand draw them, or you can just use them to spark your own ideas of a particular template that you're trying to develop for a forum or for a process that you need to run. So that's the 15 visual templates for facilitators. That's a paid gig. That's $12.95, I think. You can also get my free book, which is 12 great icons. So I go through the icons I use all the time and how to draw them and what their uses can be. Still on tools and materials, I'm going to jump through. There's a couple of different markers. Certainly here in Australia, Mr. Sketch can be really valuable, quick and easy to get your hands on. The critical thing, if you're not familiar, is that you need to make sure they're watercolor markers. So why we don't use Sharpies, because they can bleed through layers of paper on a wall and actually mark a wall because they're alcohol based. Of course, my favorite is Neuland's, and they have refillable pens. They have a gazillion colors. It used to be 25 colors when I first started off delivering training. They used to have 25 colors, but they've since just gone and spread their color palette, and you can now literally mix your own colors. So if you're a bit of a stationery king or queen and you really enjoyed the art of mixing colors for specific purposes or to match certain corporate colors that you're working with, I really recommend looking at Neuland. And Neuland is, I believe, thinking of setting up an outlet here in Australia for those of us who are here. But if you're in Europe, you've got Germany, you've got the guys just on your doorstep. And those in the US, which probably aren't on at the moment because they're in the middle of the night, they have good outlets there too. And I just mentioned Vickelblow books you get through Neuland. Okay, courses. There's a couple of courses I want to flag that can be really valuable. Napkin Academy, Dan Rome, who's, you know, the back of the napkin guy, he runs a really good online course. Sunny Brown has her Visual Note-Taking 101, which is also useful. I've done both of these in the early years. I have the Essentials of Visual Thinking online course, and essentially I used to deliver a one-day training on graphic facilitation, and I traveled all around the country and times overseas, and what I wanted to do is to be able to get all that information that I would normally deliver in an 8-hour training course into a one online package, and that's what that is. So the Essentials of Visual Thinking is really for people who want to take graphic facilitation on as a skill set and look to make it part of their professional toolkit. So what I'm really excited about, and I flagged with you if you saw on the sign-in sheet, is that the Essentials of Visual Thinking, I'm offering it for the first time as a live course. So why I'm so excited about this is it's the entire online Essentials of Visual Thinking course plus, and I will tell you a bit more about that at the end. But if you want to go snooping, it's my website, curiousmindsco.com.au/live. So just coming back to our presentation in terms of the next steps with your resources. What I suggest is do a stock take. Figure out, you know, where you are now and where you want your practice to be in about a year, and decide what resources you need that's going to suit that growth. And then dive in, get it happening, because essentially there's so much available, and that's my sixth secret, is there are loads of resources out there, whether it's accessing them online, whether it's paid or free, whether it's going, you know, to courses in person in your local area. There is so much information compared to even a decade ago. And, you know, this field is really growing, and I think it's an exciting time for us to be involved in it because there is so much going on. But where you might get stuck is really not taking action. This doesn't become a priority, and that's fine. But if you do want to make it a priority, then I would really suggest leaning in and getting extra training to be able to speed that up, make you, I guess, access resources and skills at a much faster pace. So my seventh secret to take away for tonight is decide on the one action that you will take in the next 24 hours that will keep you in motion. So let's just do a quick recap of the 7 secrets. The first was images are so important, and the power of them is because our brains naturally think in images. It's fast for us to take on information, and it helps the information last in our minds. The second secret was to design visuals all the way through your process, not add on at the end. My third secret was think about using ready-mades and handing the markers and get the participants to do some of the drawing or the creative stuff. My fourth secret is if you didn't think you could, you can draw if you practice. 3 simple steps to make your flip charts pop. Number 6 was the fact that there are loads of resources out there in all shapes and form and all languages. And my last secret is deciding on taking what action you will take in the next 24 hours that will keep you in motion. Okay, so this is for those of you who want to take this further, who are excited about this way of working, can really see the possibilities, whether it's about being able to specialize in this or whether it's adding into your existing repertoire. Let me talk a bit more about the Essentials of Live, the Essentials of Visual Thinking live course that's about to start this month. So you get the entire online visual thinking course, which, as I said, is equivalent to 8 hours face-to-face. You get 12 modules. The handbook is 80+ pages. There's over 8 hours of video watching, presentations, demonstration videos, and you also get bonus materials that I've developed. The second aspect of the live course that I am really excited about is you get to jump on live with me for 8 one-hour weekly calls. So at that point, you've got all the sort of how-tos and all my instructions and demonstrations. You come to those live calls with your case studies, with your examples, and we can together look at what's great about them and what you might want to improve. We can also brainstorm and work around maybe some projects that you've got, something happening in your workplace or something happening for you right this moment that we can work through as a group, and that you can get access to me and my advice. And the third aspect to the live course, which I find exciting, is there'll be a creative cohort that are doing this course together, and there'll be all that interaction that you get, which is just gold in my view. So, you know, I have a degree of knowledge and information, but collectively we are awesome. The synergy of a group is always amazing to me. So curiousminds.com.au/live, curiousmindsco.com.au/live. That is the course that I'm launching. You asked for 97, and I think, which if you're in Australian dollars is about $620, $630. I think, you know, that can be easily recouped with the skills that you get from being able to put this extra professional tool into an offering for a client. And you've got access to the online course for an entire 12 months. So it means you can dip in and dip back out again. You can find things where you might get stuck and you want to revisit something and go back and watch some of the demonstrations or some of the presentation materials. So it really is a rich resource for the next year for you and including the live component, which I think is just going to be so much fun. So in addition to that, and I want to say this is, you know, kind of part of the value that I want to be able to offer, is that it comes with a bonus if you join live. It comes with the first of the bonuses is that there is an exclusive recording of my 60-minute masterclass, Visual Thinking for Business. I have organizations that pay me $500, $750, even $1,000 I'm doing it for next week. The second bonus is you get a copy of the 15 visual templates for facilitators to download, so you can access that resource as part of enrolling in the live course. And I want to sort of basically give you a gift for being here and joining me on this masterclass, and that's a VIP one-on-one 45-minute jumpstart training and coaching session with me. So that's not available on the website. You won't see that, but if you enroll in the next 24 hours, I know I will give you this extra bonus that's related to the masterclass. So that is just another way for you to be able to either craft the beginning of your lesson, of your learning in this course, or you can call on that one-on-one session anytime you choose within the 12 months. Okay, so we've got one, I guess the last thing is to decide what your one action is for the next 24 hours. And now I'm happy to be able to get in and have a look at some of the questions that might have come up for you, anything that's relevant that maybe I raised in some of the examples, or in relation to the course that I've just outlined in terms of the essentials of visual thinking live. So I'm now going to, let me just try this. I can unmute all. All participants are unmuted. Hello. Now let me just make sure I've got everyone unmuted. Mute on. Okay. Has anyone got a question that they would like to have a bit of a discussion around with me while we're online?
Michelle, I'll ask you a question. It's Melissa here.
Hi, Melissa.
The large charts that you're using on the wall, do you draw those in a session with participants, or do you pull that out of your feed and up on the wall?
So you crackled, Melissa, as you were saying that, and I think that you said those large charts, which I'm not really sure which one we're talking about. So do I pull them from kind of, you know, my bank of knowledge, or do I have something pre-prepared?
So if
you there, Melissa?
Yes, do you draw them in advance or on the go?
Aha, okay. So the startup chart, if that's the one that we're talking about, which was beautifully laid out and it had the agenda, is that the one?
Yep, any of them, but yeah, that one.
Okay. So the answer is yes, I produce the startup charts I usually do before a session. There's, you know, some of those charts I might do just, you know, half an hour before people arrive, like the sign-in chart was something fairly straightforward and very simple. Particular flip charts, I can do those on the fly, but I think where we've got, you know, large scale recording charts that have a particular layout, I would actually spend a bit of time and usually have them done in advance so I can get those just rolled out and hung up because I've got so much else to be thinking about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Was tonight useful?
Yes, it was very
very useful. Thank you.
Okay. So I've got some feedback, great energy, love the way you're facilitating the session. An hour passed quickly. Yes, it has. Look at that. We've gone 57 minutes or something. Andy says, it just seems that it's practice, practice, practice. Thank you, Andy. And very useful new ideas, resources. Great. I'm so glad. Andre, thanks for sharing. Thank you, Andre, for joining. Leanne, yes, very useful. Thanks, Leanne, for the feedback. Okay, so I'm not being inundated by questions. Am I missing anyone's questions? Is anyone? Okay, well, I feel like we've maybe run the course of, and there's not a huge number of questions. So I'm really grateful that everyone who joined and participated and gave me their feedback on the way through. And I so enjoyed this forum, and I'm going to do more of them because I've just recently jumped over to Zoom, and this capacity for us to unmute and run videos and, you know, even do little graphics jams if we feel like it is going to be something that's really possible, and something I'm really looking forward to in this kind of future, accessing this type of great technology. So I'm going to close for tonight then. I wish you all an incredibly wonderful day. For those of us in Australia, we've kind of coming to the end of our evening. I want to celebrate the last hours of our International Women's Day and how wonderful that's been. For those of us who know, kind of, pay attention to the International Women's Day celebrations, that's been a great thing around my part of the world. And thank you again for joining me, and please stay in touch. If you haven't already done it, go get your free 12 icons book on my website, because it's a freebie, it could be useful, and you'll be able to stay in touch. So closing off tonight's session, thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now.